The massive holographic display showed Earth as a scarred, lifeless rock floating in the darkness of space. Smoke still rose from the dead continents where great cities once stood. Admiral Kethfer of the Zephyrian Coalition stood before the assembled council, his 4 scaly arms spread wide in triumph. His yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he looked at the representatives of 12 different alien species. "The human plague has been cleansed from the galaxy," he declared, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. His scaled face caught the light from the holographic display, making him look even more menacing. "Their cities burned to ash. Their fleets are nothing but scattered debris floating in space. The threat that dared to challenge our rightful expansion across the stars is no more." The alien council erupted in celebration. The bird-like Kavari chittered excitedly, their feathers ruffling with joy. The massive Gromleks roared their approval, shaking the metal floors with their heavy footsteps. The gas-based ethereals hummed in harmonious frequencies that made the air itself vibrate. Every species present had lost something to the humans. During the 3-year war, Earth had been a thorn in their side for too long. The humans had shown an alarming ability to adapt to any situation. They learned from every battle, improved their weapons after every defeat, and kept fighting even when victory seemed impossible. The war had cost the Coalition thousands of ships and millions of lives across their various species. But now it was over. The human homeworld was silent and dead, or so they believed, far below the smoking ruins of Sol. In bunkers buried deep beneath tons of rubble and twisted metal, Dr. Kim Hanna sat before a wall of glowing screens. Her tired eyes moved quickly across the displays showing communication networks that stretched across the planet like invisible spider webs. The reinforced concrete bunker buzzed with constant activity. Hundreds of survivors moved between workstations, fingers flying over salvaged computer terminals and alien technology. They had managed to recover from crashed ships. The air was thick and recycled, tasting of metal and fear, but it was breathable. More importantly, it was free air. The aliens above ground thought they were monitoring a graveyard, but life continued in the depths. "Status report from Busan Sector," whispered her young assistant, Kim Jinsu, as he approached her. "Station." His voice was barely audible over the hum of machinery. 4,000 survivors confirmed and operational. They have established stable contact with the Jeju Island facility. Hannah nodded grimly without taking her eyes off the screens. The numbers kept climbing as more underground facilities came online. The aliens had bombarded Earth's surface for weeks, turning proud cities into burning wasteland. But humanity's paranoia during the early days of the war had saved them. Every major population center had been secretly honeycombed with deep shelters, underground factories, and hidden command centers. The alien bombardment had been thorough, but it had only scratched the surface of human preparation. 3 levels deeper. In the primary military command center buried beneath what used to be downtown Seoul, General Park Min-ho studied tactical displays that showed the true scope of human survival. His weathered face, marked by 3 years of constant warfare, showed no emotion as reports continued to filter in from across the globe. His gray hair was cut short in military fashion, and his uniform, though clean, showed the wear of someone who had been living underground for months. "Sir, we now have confirmation from 63 underground facilities worldwide," his aide reported, standing at attention beside the metal table that served as the general's desk. "Current count shows approximately 40 million survivors total and growing as more facilities establish contact." Park's fingers drummed slowly against the cold metal surface. The sound echoed in the underground chamber like a countdown timer. 40 million survivors from a global population of 8 billion people. The mathematics were brutal, but the reality was even more important than the numbers suggested. The alien coalition believed they had achieved total victory. Their ships patrolled Earth's orbit lazily, their crews probably celebrating and planning how to divide up human territory among themselves. Their ground forces had grown careless, treating Earth like a museum of their conquest rather than an active battlefield. They had made the classic mistake of declaring victory too early. The aliens had no idea that buried beneath the ruins of human civilization, millions of survivors were not just hiding, but preparing. In the depths of the Earth, human engineers worked frantically to understand captured alien technology. Scientists studied enemy weapons and ship designs. Military leaders planned operations that would make the previous 3 years of warfare look like a gentle disagreement. The real war was not over. In fact, from humanity's perspective, it was just beginning. Park looked up at the main display showing Earth from orbit. The same view the aliens saw when they looked down at their conquered prize. But unlike the aliens, he could see past the smoke and destruction to the network of life. Continuing below ground, the coalition thought they were looking at humanity's grave, had no idea they were actually looking at humanity's cocoon. Soon, very soon, they would discover what emerged from that cocoon. And when that day came, the aliens would learn that declaring humanity dead had been their greatest mistake. The drums of war were already beating in the depths of the Earth. 6 months had passed since the last alien. Bombs fell silent on Earth's surface. The Zephyrian coalition forces that remained on the planet had grown lazy and careless. They walked their patrol routes like board guards in a museum, believing they were simply watching over a dead world. Their commanders had told them the humans were extinct, so why should they worry about anything more dangerous than scavenging animals? It could not have been more wrong. Deep beneath the ruins of Busan, Dr. Kim Hanna pushed open the heavy metal doors of Research Lab 7 and stepped into the main corridor. Her white lab coat was stained with grease and chemical burns. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had not slept properly in days. But the exhaustion on her face could not hide the spark of triumph in her eyes. A crowd of survivors had gathered in the corridor, waiting for news. Men and women in work clothes, children clutching makeshift toys, elderly people leaning on walking sticks, all of them looked at her with desperate hope. The underground city had become home to over 15,000 people, and every one of them depended on the work being done in the research labs. "We have done it," Hannah announced, her voice carrying clearly through the recycled air. "Complete reverse engineering of their propulsion systems. We now understand how their ships move through space." The crowd erupted in quiet cheers. They had learned to celebrate silently to avoid detection from above. But the joy on their faces was unmistakable. For 6 months, teams of human scientists and engineers had worked around the clock to understand alien technology. They had torn apart every piece of enemy equipment they could find, studied every crashed ship, analyzed every weapon. The underground city beneath Busan had grown far beyond what anyone had imagined possible. What started as a simple shelter had become a sprawling complex of tunnels, laboratories, living quarters, and manufacturing facilities. The alien bombardment had actually helped them in an unexpected way. The massive explosions had cracked open the Earth and exposed valuable mineral deposits that had been buried for millions of years. Geothermal energy, tapped from the Earth's core, provided unlimited power for their machines. Rare Earth elements, now easily accessible thanks to the alien bombing, gave them the materials they needed to build advanced technology. The aliens had intended to destroy human civilization, but instead they had given humanity the tools it needed to fight back. Far above, on the surface world of twisted metal and broken concrete, Li Jinwu moved through the ruins like a ghost. The former Special Forces operator had traded his military uniform for dark civilian clothes that helped him blend into the shadows of destroyed buildings. His face was hard and weathered, aged beyond his 35 years by months of constant warfare. Behind him, 11 other fighters followed in perfect silence. They had all been soldiers once: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Now they were something new. They were hunters, and their prey wore alien uniforms and carried advanced weapons. Jinwu raised his hand in a silent signal, and his team froze instantly. Through the broken windows of what had once been a luxury shopping center, he could see an alien patrol making its way down the rubble-filled street. The creatures moved with the lazy confidence of conquerors who believed they had nothing to fear from a dead world. A target acquired, whispered Park Soo-min into her throat microphone. The former army sniper lay concealed in the ruins of a collapsed department store, her rifle trained on the alien patrol leader. She had been one of South Korea's best marksmen before the war, but the conflict had changed her. The aliens had killed her husband and 2 young children in the first wave of bombing. Now she fought not just for victory, but for revenge. Through her scope, she counted 6 aliens in their standard patrol formation. 6 hostiles, moving in predictable pattern, she reported. Same route they used yesterday and the day before. Jinwoo smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. Aliens had grown comfortable with their victory. They followed the same routes every day, carried their weapons casually, and rarely bothered to scan their surroundings properly. They acted like tourists visiting a battlefield museum rather than soldiers occupying enemy territory. That predictability would be their downfall. The weapons his team carried were no longer simple captured alien guns. Human engineers had modified them, improved them, and adapted them for human use. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had something the Coalition had never learned to value: creativity born from desperation. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in the darkness of space, Commander Cho Daeho sat in the command center of Mining Station Kepler 44b and stared at the encrypted message that had just arrived from Earth. The transmission had taken months to reach the Outer Rim colonies. Traveling through hidden relay stations and coded through frequencies the aliens could not detect. The message was short, but it changed everything. Resurrection protocol is active, he read aloud to his assembled staff. Earth lives, and we have our orders. The mining colony had been presumed destroyed when the alien invasion began. In reality, Cho had ordered a complete communication blackout to make the aliens think his station was dead. For 6 months, his people had lived in silence, mining asteroids and building ships while pretending to be ghosts. Now, Earth was calling. And the message was simple but clear: prepare for war. Real war. The time for hiding was almost over. The first alien patrol that went missing was dismissed as equipment failure. The second was blamed on navigation errors. By the time a dozen patrols had vanished without a trace, even the most confident Coalition officers began to worry. Officer Eltar stood in the monitoring station that orbited Earth like a metal moon. His 6 eyes moved quickly across the displays, showing patrol schedules, communication logs, and status reports. What he saw made his blue skin turn pale with fear. The list of missing units grew longer every day, and none of them had sent distress signals before disappearing. Sir, his assistant approached nervously. Patrol Group 7 is now 40 minutes overdue for check-in. That makes 15 missing units this week. Veltar's clawed hands gripped the edge of his console. Something was very wrong with the dead. Worlds spinning below them, the planet looked peaceful from orbit. Brown and gray continents marked by craters and burned cities. But those missing patrols had to be going somewhere. The question was where, and more importantly, what was making them disappear. Far below on Earth's surface, the Ginwu crouched in the shadows of a collapsed highway overpass and watched another alien patrol walk into his trap. His team had grown far beyond the original 12 fighters. Word had spread through the underground networks about the successful raids, and survivors from across the region had joined his group. Former soldiers, police officers, hunters, and even civilians who had lost everything to the aliens. They all came seeking revenge. Now 300 fighters moved through the ruins of Seoul like deadly shadows. They struck alien outposts with surgical precision, took their weapons and equipment, and vanished back into the underground tunnels before reinforcements could arrive. The aliens never knew what hit them. The weapons they carried were no longer simple, captured alien guns. Dr. Kim Hanna's research laboratories had been working day and night to create something new, hybrid weapons that combined human engineering with alien technology. The results were deadly surprises that even experienced Coalition troops could not defend against. Target in position, whispered Park Soo-min through her communication device. Though the former sniper had become Ginwoo's second in command, and her hatred for the aliens burned as bright as ever. 12 hostiles, standard patrol formation. They are following the same route as always. Jinwoo smiled grimly. The aliens never learned. They kept using the same tactics, the same routes, the same formation patterns. Human fighters, on the other hand, adapted to every situation. They studied their enemy, learned from every encounter, and constantly improved their methods. "All units, prepare to engage," Jinwoo commanded softly. Around him, 300 fighters took their positions in the rubble. They had become masters of urban warfare, turning the destroyed city into their fortress, deep underground. In laboratories that had been carved out of solid rock, Kim Soo-jin wiped sweat from her forehead and examined the latest test results. As Dr. Hannah's lead engineer, she was responsible for creating the weapons that gave human fighters their edge over alien technology. "The quantum disruptors are working perfectly," she reported to Hannah, who was studying the data on her computer screen. "The aliens' energy shields cannot adapt to our modified frequency patterns. Every shot penetrates their defenses." Hannah nodded. With satisfaction, the breakthrough had come 3 weeks ago when they discovered how to disrupt the quantum fields that powered alien defensive systems. By mixing human electronics with alien power sources, they had created weapons that the Coalition had never encountered before. The aliens' advanced shields, which had protected them through 3 years of warfare, were now useless against human hybrid technology, even deeper underground. General Park Min-ho stood in his expanded command center and reviewed reports from around the globe. The underground network had grown beyond his wildest expectations. Maglev trains now connected the buried cities beneath major population centers, allowing rapid movement of people, supplies, and military equipment across continents. What had started as desperate survival shelters had become the foundation of a hidden global empire. Status report on the outer colonies, he requested from his aide, Colonel Kim Young-ho. "All 17 colonies have confirmed operational status, sir," Young-ho replied, reading from his tablet. "Commander Cho reports that his fleet is fully equipped and ready to move on your order." Park nodded slowly. The aliens had made a terrible mistake when they assumed humanity's space-based assets were destroyed. In reality, the scattered mining, colonies and research stations had simply gone dark, pretending to be dead while they prepared for war. For the past year, they had been converting mining equipment into weapons, transforming cargo freighters into warships, and turning peaceful colonies into military bases. The reports from space were encouraging. 17 colonies, each one now a hidden fortress, bristling with improvised weapons, and crewed by humans who burned for revenge. Mining lasers had been converted into ship-killing weapons. Cargo vessels now carried missile launchers instead of supply containers. Asteroid mining facilities had become ship construction yards. Building vessels that combined human determination with captured alien technology, Park walked to the massive display screen that showed Earth from space. To alien eyes, the planet looked dead and conquered. They had no idea that beneath the surface, 40 million humans were preparing for the largest military operation in human history. The sleeping giant was indeed awakening, and it was very, very hungry for revenge. Soon, the aliens would discover that declaring humanity dead had been the worst mistake in their species' history. The time for hiding was almost over. Time for striking back was about to begin. Admiral Kethfer was enjoying his morning meal when the emergency communication alarm began screaming throughout his flagship. The sound was so urgent and loud that he nearly choked on his food. He had not heard that alarm in months, not since the humans had been defeated and their world turned to ash. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded as he stormed into the communication center. His forearms moved in agitation, and his scales rippled with annoyance. The war was over. Earth was dead. There should be nothing important enough to interrupt his breakfast. The communications officer, a young Zephyrian named Telmuth, stood trembling before the main display screen. His hands shook as he tried to explain what he had discovered.
Sir.
"We have received an emergency transmission from monitoring station F7, Telmuth stammered. "But the message is... strange. Very strange. Show me," Kethfer growled, his patience running thin. The holographic display flickered to life, showing what remained of monitoring station F7. The Admiral's blood ran cold as he stared at the image. The station had been completely destroyed. Twisted pieces of metal floated in Earth's orbit like the bones of some giant beast. The destruction was total and precise. This was not an accident or equipment failure. What do you mean the humans are alive? Kethfer snarled at the trembling officer. The humans are extinct. We killed them all. But even as he spoke, his eyes were drawn to something that made his scales turn pale with fear. Burned into the largest piece of wreckage, written in perfect coalition script, was a simple message. We remember. The words seemed to glow with menace. Someone had destroyed the monitoring station and left a message in the coalition's own language. Someone who wanted them to know that the attack was deliberate, planned, and personal. Sir, another officer called from across the room. We are receiving similar reports from across the entire system. Outpost Gamut 12 has gone silent. Supply Convoy 7 never reached its destination. Troll Fleet Delta has vanished completely. Shethwer felt his stomach drop as report after report flooded in. The pattern was unmistakable. Across the entire Sol system, Coalition forces were being systematically destroyed. The attacks were coordinated, precise, and deadly. This was not random violence. This was warfare. How many? He asked quietly. 17 facilities destroyed, sir. 6 supply convoys missing. 23 patrol groups vanished without a trace. The Admiral's mind raced. Only one species in the galaxy fought with this level of precision and coordination. Only one species had the intelligence and determination to plan such a massive operation. The humans, he whispered, they are still alive. Far below on Earth's surface, General Park Minho stood in what had once been the ruins of downtown Seoul. But the area was no longer a wasteland of broken concrete and twisted metal. In the months since the aliens had stopped paying attention, human construction crews had been working day and night to rebuild. The facility that now rose from the ashes was larger and more advanced than anything that had stood there before. The Sol Command Center was a marvel of human engineering combined with captured alien technology. Its towers reached toward the stars like metal fingers, bristling with communication arrays and weapon systems. Underground, the facility connected to the global network of tunnels and hidden cities that had kept humanity alive. All units report ready for launch, announced Colonel Kim Young-ho. His voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. Park looked around the command center at the faces of his staff. These men and women had lived through the bombardment of Earth, survived months of hiding underground, spent every waking moment preparing for this single moment. They had lost families, homes, and entire civilizations to the alien invasion. Well, they would have their revenge. Launch authorization confirmed, Park announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the facility. Operation Resurrection begins now. Across Earth's surface, hidden launch bays that had been secretly constructed over the past months suddenly opened like the eyes of some giant beast awakening from sleep. 50 ships rose from the surface, each one a unique hybrid of human engineering and alien technology that had been reverse-engineered in underground laboratories. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human creativity had taken alien designs and improved them, creating vessels that were faster, more maneuverable, and deadlier than their original counterparts. The crews that flew them were survivors of the bombardment, men and women who had lost everything and now fought with the fury of those who had nothing left to lose. At the same moment, thousands of light years away, Commander Cho Daeho gave the attack order to his colonial fleet. 17 hidden bases across the galaxy erupted into action simultaneously. Mining stations that had pretended to be dead suddenly revealed themselves to be military fortresses. Cargo ships that had been thought destroyed opened their holds to release swarms of fighter craft. The first target was the coalition world of Vex Prime, a major industrial center that supplied weapons to the alien fleet. The planet's defense systems had been designed to repel large invasion forces. It's not the small, fast ships that now descended on them like angry wasps. Within the first hour, 3 coalition worlds were under attack. Within 6 hours, 12 worlds were burning. The dead had risen from their graves, and they were very, very angry. The galaxy would never be the same. The Great Coalition Council Chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 12 different alien species shouted, roared, and chittered in panic as emergency reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The orderly meeting hall that had celebrated humanity's death just months ago now looked like a disaster zone. Admiral Kethfer stood at the center of the madness, his forearms shaking as he tried to process the stream of terrible news. His scaled face had turned pale gray with fear. Everything he thought he knew about the war had been wrong, everything. "Sir, urgent report from Intelligence Command," his officer called out over the noise of the panicking council members. The young Zephyrian's voice cracked with stress as he read from his data tablet. "They are not just alive, the intelligence," officer stammered, his words barely audible above the chaos. "They are everywhere. Every human system we thought was destroyed. Every colony we believed was wiped out. They are all operational and fully coordinated." Kethfer felt his stomach drop. This was impossible. The Coalition had spent 3 years systematically destroying human worlds. They had bombarded Earth until it was silent. They had hunted down human ships across the galaxy. How could the humans still have a functioning military? But the reports kept coming, each one worse than the last. Human fleets were attacking Coalition worlds with ships that moved faster than anything in their databases. Human weapons were cutting through Coalition shields like they were made of paper. Human tactics were more brutal and effective than anything the aliens had encountered in their long history of conquest. The humans had not just survived their near extinction. They had learned from it. They had evolved into something far more dangerous than they had been before the war began. Thousands of light years away, Dr. Kim Hanna stood on the bridge of the flagship Soul's Vengeance and watched through the main view screen as another Coalition military base exploded in brilliant flames. The hybrid technology that her laboratories had developed was working even better than she had hoped. Human engineering, combined with alien science, had created weapons and ships that gave humanity advantages their enemies could not understand or counter. The Soul's Vengeance itself was a perfect example of this new human technology. Built in the hidden shipyards beneath Earth's surface, it looked like no ship that had ever flown among the stars. Its hull was sleek and dark, designed for speed and stealth. Its weapons could punch through Coalition shields in seconds. Its engines could outrun anything the aliens had ever built. Around the flagship, hundreds of other human ships moved in perfect formation. Each one was unique, built by different colonies and research stations, but all of them shared the same deadly combination of human creativity and alien technology. The fleet moved through space like a pack of predators, hunting down Coalition forces with ruthless efficiency. "Ma'am, incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Lee Min-jae from his station near the rear of the bridge. "Admiral Kethfer is requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations." Hannah's expression did not change as she heard the news. Her face remained as cold and hard as the metal hull of her ship. She had expected this moment. The aliens were finally beginning to understand the mistake they had made. "Open a channel," she ordered. The main view screen flickered and changed to show Admiral Kethfer in what appeared to be his private office. The alien leader looked terrible. His scales had lost their shine, his forearms trembled slightly, and his yellow eyes darted nervously around the room. This was not the confident conqueror who had celebrated humanity's death just months ago. Dr. Hannah Kethfer began, his voice shaking. "We need to talk. We can negotiate an end to this conflict. Territory, resources, whatever your people want, we can work something out." Hannah listened to his words without moving. Behind her, the bridge crew continued their work in silence, monitoring the battle that was raging across multiple star systems. Through the view screen, she could see the lights of Coalition ships burning in the darkness of space. "You declared us dead," Hannah interrupted, her voice as cold as the space between stars. Her words cut through Kethfer's desperate plea like a blade. "You celebrated our extinction. You thought you had won a total victory." She leaned forward slightly, and the lighting on the bridge cast shadows across her face that made her look like an angel of death. Behind her, visible through the bridge windows, the lights of 1,000 human ships glowed like stars of vengeance against the black of space. "You made one critical error," Hannah continued, her voice growing even colder. "You should have made sure we stayed dead." The transmission ended with a sharp click. leaving Kethfer staring at a blank screen. Across the galaxy, the human assault continued without pause. Coalition worlds burned under human weapons. Coalition fleets were destroyed by human ships that seemed to appear from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. The species that had once been nearly driven to extinction had returned as something far more dangerous than they had ever been before. They were survivors who had learned from their near-death experience and emerged as apex predators. They had studied their enemies, understood their weaknesses, and now they were exploiting those weaknesses with ruthless precision. The Coalition had wanted humanity dead. Now they understood why that had been their greatest mistake. The humans were no longer the species that could be defeated by superior numbers or technology. They had become something new, something evolved, something that would not stop until every alien who had participated in the attempted genocide was dead. Earth had given its answer, and that answer was written in fire across the stars.